All right, let's dive in. Today, we're going to crack open the essential playbook for one of the world's most powerful enterprise systems, SAP S/4HANA. Look, whether you're a student just getting your feet wet or a seasoned pro who's been in the trenches for years, this is your guide to keeping the digital heart of a global business beating strong.
But seriously, think about that for a second. You've got millions of transactions, thousands of employees, supply chains that snake all across the globe. How does all of that stay online all the time? It's a huge challenge, right? And it takes precision, a solid plan, and a really deep understanding of the system's core.
Well, the answer lies in what we call a digital core. It's like the central nervous system of the business. And for so many companies, SAP S/4HANA is that core. It connects everything from finance and manufacturing to customer service. It's that single source of truth that keeps the entire enterprise moving in lockstep. But here's the thing. A system this powerful and this complex doesn't just run itself. You can't just wing it. No way. You need a playbook, a detailed guide that tells you exactly what to do to keep it healthy, what moves to make to keep it running at peak performance, and, how to react when things inevitably go wrong.
And that's exactly what the official operations guide is for. Hey, don't just take my word for it. The guide itself calls it the official starting point for getting S/4HANA running optimally. This is the very playbook we're going to break down today.
So here's our game plan. We'll start with the core framework, what I call the 3 pillars. Then we'll dive into each one, monitoring, managing, and troubleshooting. And finally, we'll talk about how to actually put all of this into practice in the real world. To make sense of a system as massive as S/4HANA, you really need a simple but powerful framework. And thankfully, the operations guide gives us exactly that with these 3 pillars. Let's check them out.
See? It really just boils down to these 3 key activities. First, you monitor. You're basically keeping your finger on the pulse of the system at all times. Second, you manage. This is all about the proactive stuff, planning for updates, keeping things optimized. And third, you troubleshoot. This is the reactive part for sure, but it is an absolutely critical skill, fixing things when they break.
Okay, let's kick things off with Pillar 1, monitoring. Now, this isn't about sitting around waiting for some big red light to start flashing. It's about constant, vigilant observation so you can catch problems before they ever impact the business.
So what does that actually look like? Well, it's all built around something called alert monitoring. Instead of manually digging through endless log files, you set up these automated tripwires. The system tells you when something's off, like, say, a payroll job is suddenly running 50% slower than it did yesterday, or the disk space on a critical server just hit 95% capacity. Now, the playbook doesn't just throw concepts at you. It gives you specific tools for the job. And one of the most powerful and, honestly, legendary tools in the SAP arsenal is the Computing Center Management System, or CCMS. For any S/4HANA admin, this is a foundational piece of your toolkit. And here's why it's so important. CCMS gives you a single pane of glass to watch over your entire system landscape. It's where all those alerts we just talked about are going to pop up. You can track everything from CPU usage to data archiving jobs, and you can even use transaction RZ20 to build your own custom dashboards for the metrics that matter most to your business.
Okay, so monitoring tells you what's happening right now. Pillar 2, manage, is all about planning for the future. This is the proactive work that ensures your system stays stable, secure, and efficient for years and years to come.
Software lifecycle management. It's a pretty broad topic. It really covers everything from applying small security patches to planning out huge version upgrades. And this is a big one, managing the massive amounts of data the system builds up over time.
The playbook breaks this down into 4 essential activities. First, you've got a plan for those big upgrades. Second, you absolutely must apply regular patches, which SAP conveniently bundles into what they call support package stacks. Third, you need a strategy for managing your data growth. And last but not least, you need a rock-solid backup and recovery plan. That one's non-negotiable.
Now, this slide right here clears up something that trips up a lot of people, the difference between data archiving and data aging. Think of it like this. Data archiving physically removes old data from your live database and puts it in a separate file. That's your long-term cold storage. Data aging, on the other hand, keeps the data in the database, but it moves it from expensive, fast, hot memory to a slower, cheaper, cold storage area. This is a huge deal for managing costs and performance on an in-memory platform like HANA.
And when it comes to updates, the playbook is really clear about SAP's official recommendation. Implement the whole support package stack. They bundle everything: bug fixes, new features, security patches all together. The key takeaway here is you don't pick and choose individual fixes. You apply the entire stack. That's how you keep your system consistent and fully supported.
Okay, so that brings us to our third and final pillar, troubleshooting. Because look, no matter how well you monitor and manage, things will eventually break. This part of the playbook is for those fire drill moments.
Let's just imagine a scenario for a second. It's the end of the quarter, the finance team is scrambling to close the books, and a critical process just fails. The pressure is on. Panic starts to set in. Where do you even begin to look?
The playbook gives you the answer. This is where the guide becomes your absolute best friend in a crisis. Instead of just guessing, you turn to the right page, and it maps the business area directly to the right diagnostic tool. So for that finance closing error, you go straight to the application log, transaction SLG1. Problem with production planning? You check the QRFC monitor using SMQ1. It gives you a precise, immediate starting point.
And that's the real power here. It just cuts right through the complexity during a super high-stress situation. It replaces that frantic searching with a clear, methodical process, and that saves precious time. And that's invaluable whether you're a new person on the team or a seasoned pro who can't possibly memorize every single transaction code out there.
But troubleshooting isn't just about tools, right? It's also about process. The guide actually details how to structure your whole support system, from how users report issues to how your internal team escalates them, and finally, how to engage SAP's own experts when you're truly stuck. So there we have it, our framework: monitor, manage, and troubleshoot. But how do we turn this playbook from just some documents sitting on a shelf into a core part of how we work, day in and day out?
And here's probably the most important takeaway of all. No one expects you to memorize this entire document. The goal is not memorization. It's about knowing the framework. It's about understanding those 3 pillars so that when a specific challenge hits, you know exactly where in the guide to flip to find the answer. The real skill is efficient retrieval.
And this brings us to one final big picture question for the future. We spent a lot of time talking about reacting to issues, but as these systems get smarter and more autonomous, is the role of the SAP professional going to shift completely? Will the expert of tomorrow be less of a system mechanic always fixing things that break, and more of a system architect, designing resilient platforms where failures are prevented before they can even happen? Now that is something to think about.